Good morning, everybody. I hope you're well. Today, oh, my shirt looks a bit funny. Let me move a bit closer. That might help. There we go. Today is October the 1st, Friday, October the 1st, and that means it is the start of Black History Month, which is fantastic. Black History Month 2020. So in today's assembly, I thought what I would do is I would talk to you about somebody from someone from, well, he's actually still alive, but I'm going to talk to you about a poet, a black poet who had quite a big impact on my life. And I'm going to talk to you about why that is, and we'll learn a little bit about him. Then we'll read some of his poems. Some of you probably already know some of his poems. Also, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk to you about the work that you'll be doing a little bit later on in the month on Black history, because for a week or two you will be studying about Black history, learning a bit more. And then also what I wanted to talk to you about was how assemblies are going to work this month. So usually, you know that usually assemblies are me or Mr. Knowles reading you a story or talking to you about something, showing you some pictures, and then you watch it in your classrooms. And hopefully you enjoy them, and that's it. And then the next day, me or Mr. Knowles are there again. Well, this month, in Black History Month, it's not just going to be me and Mr. Knowles. Actually, there are going to be some other teachers who will be recording assemblies for you, who will be talking to you about people through history that they think are really important or have been really important to them. And hopefully that will not only make your assemblies a bit more exciting, but it will change the sort of people you learn about. Because maybe me and Mr. Knowles, we only kind of think about certain things. And actually, having a wider array of people speaking to you might be really interesting. Okay, so let's get on with the assembly. I'm going to talk to you about this man here, and that man's name is Benjamin Zephaniah. Now, Benjamin Zephaniah is a poet amongst lots of other things. And when I was in primary school, in year 6, my teacher, who was called Mr. Peters, read me lots and lots of Benjamin Zephaniah's poems. And it had a real big impact on my life. Benjamin Zephaniah was probably the first black poet that I had ever read. And the way that he'd written his poetry, I found really exciting. And off the back of his poetry, listening to his poetry, I tried to write some poems. I was okay. I wasn't brilliant. I kept trying all the way through school. And occasionally I will write a poem now. But also, Benjamin Zephaniah's poems led me to read different authors, different poets, and listen to different music, because it kind of shaped what I thought was interesting, what I thought was cool. Now, I thought what I'd do is tell you a little bit about Benjamin Zephaniah. And then what I would do is I'm going to read you 3 of his poems. If you are interested in Benjamin Zephaniah, you could search for him on the internet, or you could go to the library and speak to Miss Hamilton. We've got some of his books. Here's one of them here. And there are lots of amazing videos of Benjamin Zephaniah on the internet. So if you typed his name into YouTube, you would see some interesting videos of him reading his poems. So he was born and raised in Birmingham, in England. Birmingham isn't very far away from here, is it? It's kind of just up from us. It takes about an hour to get there. I imagine some of you have been to Birmingham. Maybe lots of you have been to Birmingham. I know that I've been. When Benjamin was 10, he performed his poems, or he kind of performed in a church, and he read aloud, and he really enjoyed it. And then by the time he was 15, lots of people near where he lived really enjoyed listening to him read his poems and talk, because he was really good at it. He was really popular at first within the black community in Birmingham, but eventually Benjamin's poems and Benjamin's performances meant that lots of people of all ethnicities and races started to really enjoy his performances. And then, a little bit later on, in the 1990s, which will seem a long time ago to you, but for me was when I was growing up, he became enormously popular, and lots of children and lots of adults started to hear his poems. And Benjamin Zephaniah was probably the first black poet who became known by most children. And because of that, he's had a massive impact on children. He's had a massive impact on children like me, on white children, but he's also had a huge impact on black children and children who aren't white. And one of the poems I'm going to read to you is very short, but I think it explains why that is. And if we think about mirrors in windows, which we talked about quite a lot recently, for some people, for black children particularly, they might not see many black poets. So when they think of a poet, in their head, the picture that they might see might not be a black person. And Benjamin Zephaniah managed to change that. And that went on to inspire lots and lots of poets and lots of authors. So some of the authors of books that I've read to you recently or in the last year would say that they were inspired by Benjamin Zephaniah. So let me read you a poem and then I'll go on talking about him a little bit more. Ooh, where's my mouse gone? There it is. So I'll make it a bit bigger for you and I'll get myself out of the way. Who's who? I used to think nurses were women. I used to think police were men. I used to think poets were boring until I became one of them. So that poem talks about the fact that in your head, sometimes you have a picture of certain jobs or certain professions or certain careers. And in your head, you might think that the person who does that job doesn't look like you, so you can't do it. But actually, as Benjamin says in this poem, I think what the message is that you can be whatever you want to be. And that not all nurses look the way that you think they are in your head. Not all police look the way that you think they are in your head. Not all poets look the way that you think you are. So you shouldn't let what you look like or your race or your gender stop you from doing anything. Okay? So, let's read another poem. Wordology. Sociologists, physicists, archaeologists and anthropologists, like dietitians, rhetoricians, mathematicians, and politicians, are simple people. Help them. Again there, in this poem, what Benjamin Zephaniah is doing is he's playing with careers, people's jobs that sound really important. But he's just saying they're simple. Okay, the final poem of his I'm going to read to you. I'm just going to make myself a bit smaller. Think me. I want to be in someone's mind forever and ever. All right, I want my picture taken. I must be someone's thought. Somebody, somewhere, dream of me. I want to be remembered. The reason I put this poem in, because there were lots in the book that I could have, lots online that I could have read to you, but this one, I think it's interesting. Benjamin Zephaniah is saying in this one that he wants to be remembered, and actually, I really remember him, and he was someone that had a really big impact on my life, which is why I'm talking to you about him on the first day of Black History Month. Okay, thanks for listening to me talk about Benjamin Zephaniah. Hopefully, some of those poems will have made you really interested. Definitely go and speak to Miss Hamilton and definitely have a look on the internet at his poems. Right, what are you going to be studying in Black History Month? Well, for the last few years, we have been learning in Black History Month about the 7 saints of St. Paul's. And we're going to continue that this year. So later on this month, your lessons will change slightly and you will start to learn about the 7 saints. In those lessons, you will do some writing about them, you will do some artwork, and hopefully you will be able to see some more pictures and learn a bit more about the saints. Last year, when we did this, it was difficult to go on trips and it was difficult to get people to come into schools. So you just studied them. But this year, hopefully, some of you will be able to go to St. Paul's, walk around and see the murals. And then also, fingers crossed, we will be able to get Michelle to come into school, who's the artist that created them. She came in a few years ago, and hopefully she'll be able to come back. I sent her a video of our work last year, and she was over the moon with it and put it on the internet on her website. So I think she would probably like to come and see the work we've continued to do. Okay, so that's what you're going to be doing. I've got one final thing to talk to you about, and it's not about Black History Month. It is about this tap. So, this week we have had a really exciting week on the playground because our new water feature and mound and slide have been open. And it's been incredible to watch you play. We feel really proud of having that on our playground, and we feel really proud about the way that most of you have played with it most of the time. However, there is one thing that people are doing that's a bit silly and might break it, and also is getting people really wet and making people feel a bit poorly. So, if you are playing with the tap, great. But there's two things that you need to make sure you're not doing. The first thing is when you pull the tap here, when you pull that, you don't need to hang on it because otherwise it will break off. And if it breaks off, then the water feature won't work. Okay? So the tap is made so that if you just pull it with your hand like that and let go, it will go back. Okay? So you do not need to pull with all your weight. Just pull it gently, okay? And then the water will come out. Once the water's coming out of here, once the water's coming down here, some people have been putting their hand underneath so that it sprays upwards. Now, I understand that you might think that that's fun, and if it was really hot in the middle of summer, getting a little bit wet, having a bit of fun with the water, that would be fine. But actually what's happening is some children are putting their hand under it for a long time, the water is spraying on lots of other children, and those other children are becoming poorly because it's a little bit cold. So, if you are playing with the tap, if you're playing in here, that's fantastic. But please don't put your hand under, or your finger under the end of the tap to make the water spray, because we can't do that anymore. Okay? If we see people doing that, we're going to ask them to stop playing with it, and you won't be able to play with the water feature at all, which would be a real shame and isn't something we want to do. So, continue to play really nicely with the water feature, continue to enjoy the slide, continue to enjoy all the different things you can do on the playground, but please make sure you are not putting your finger or hand underneath the tap. That's all I'm going to say. Have a lovely day. I hope you read some poems from Benjamin Zephaniah at some point soon. Bye-bye.